So this is a video I wasn't sure if I was going to actually make or let alone post, but I thought through it and decided to do it. So I saw a man OD a couple days ago in Vienna, and I was having trouble sleeping, so I kind of just journaled and wrote out my thoughts about the whole situation. In DV context, I'm traveling right now in Europe, and I was on Ring Road in Vienna, I think that's what it's called, but I'm walking the streets and I come across this homeless lady screaming her head off in German at bypassers, performing CPR on her friend. And it was the weirdest thing, being confronted by death in such a raw and unexpected way. In society today, we often ritualize death with funerals and burials, and we talk about how they're in a better place. We celebrate their life, but when you see a woman screaming, doing CPR on her partner, it no longer has the ritualistic practice around it. I felt her loss. But the weird thing was, watching all of this and seeing the hundreds of or so people that would just walked by and didn't even glance up from their phones to notice that a human had just died 30 feet from them. And those who did glance up and saw it processed what was going on and continued with their day. Only a few people actually asked if an ambulance had been called. And the more I noticed the nonchalant attitudes of those walking by, the less important the situation seemed to me. It was as though I was falling into this mass delusion of people refusing or not caring to fully understand that person had died. I'm not sure if it was just because of his homeless status, but I think more people would have stopped to help if it was an injured cat or a bird. I was having to remind myself that this was a person that just died, and of the seriousness of the situation that I had just seen. It was not something that could just be blown off. And now I'm up way past my bedtime and just thinking through this matter, because perhaps the thing I find most disturbing is how little this experience actually affected me. I'm more disturbed by the lack of disturbance I have of the situation itself than of actually watching someone die. And perhaps that's just a coping mechanism for myself, but I was also thinking it could be just how we're kind of made as humans, where if you talk to native tribes in Brazil or Africa, they have a very stoic outlook on death because they're surrounded by it on a daily basis. But for me, death has always been something of, my mom tells me, honey, so-and-so passed away, we have a funeral on this day, block it off on your calendar. I'm like, okay. And I go to the funeral, everyone's kind of just being sad and talking about their memories of the person. But I've never experienced it without expecting to see it. It's always been, I traveled to the funeral fully knowing and kind of preparing myself for the attitude that's appropriate for such an occasion. But it was just a really weird thing to happen, and yeah, just, I don't know, lots of stuff to think about, and how in the modern world we're very sheltered from it. Most families don't lose a third of their children to childhood mortalities anymore. Me personally, I've had many older relatives pass away, but it wasn't like a surprise. I had one friend commit suicide, but I mean, at the time I didn't really process it because how young I was, but this situation is just something that I've been thinking about